Right now, I'm challenging myself to see if I can make 128 Regulation H teams that are each different from one another over the course of 128 days. Why 128, you might ask? At the end of the 128 days, we're going to do something special where we battle every team against each other in a single elimination bracket to see which team emerges on top. There will be some competitively strong teams, there will be some gimmick teams, and there will be some probably a good number of goofs and gaffs in there, so if you want to follow through to the end, subscribe so that you can keep up with each day. But without further ado, let's move on to day 125. Alright everybody, welcome back to another video, and in today's video we are going to be going over a team that has Leavanny on it. It's not a Leavanny team because it took me over a month to make this team, and Leavanny isn't even the most important member on the team. It's like not even close how important Leavanny is on this team. This team took me the longest to try and figure out exactly what the idea was, because I had 125 as just Leavanny Sun for the longest time, and then when it came time to actually look at Leavanny and figure out what to do with it, I realized that there's really not a lot here. Leavanny is a Pokemon that unfortunately has been well, I don't even know if it's been power corrupt really, because it's not like it was a great chlorophyll user to begin with. But I feel like Leavanny is a great example of why bug types in general are just so down, because bug as a type it's gotta be the worst one. There's no doubt in my mind. Bug is a rough type to have, and being a bug grass type with 2 quad weaknesses that used to have 3 quad weaknesses is also especially rough. But we're going to be using Leavanny today in the best way that I could figure out to use a Leavanny, and that is mostly just as a setup mon here, as we have the Struggle Bug in order to lower the opponent's special attack, and if they have 2 special attackers, then we get the special attack drop on both, and we're in business. And we also have the Lunge to directly try and deal some damage with our 80 base power bug type move that also has a 100% chance to lower the target's attack by 1. And then we have some more like short-term stat buffing in the light screen and the reflect that we can set up for our team to try and make them more bulky. And Leavanny is a Pokemon that is not very bulky at all, so we gave it the focus sash just so that it can always take at least 1 hit. And we are chlorophyll so that we can double our speed in the sun. And another thing worth saying about Leavanny is that I think it is one of the top Fell Stinger Pokemon, as you have that swarm to give you the boost whenever you're on low HP, and if you're going for the Fell Stinger, then you've probably already taken an attack in order to try and get an opponent down to a low HP. So Leavanny is a great Fell Stinger Pokemon, but I didn't put it on that one Fell Stinger team that we made, because I knew that I was going to use it here, which maybe was a bit of a mistake looking back on that now. Next up, we've got Hatterene making a return. I don't think I've used Hatterene since that very first time that I used it on the very first team. So Hatterene might have the largest usage gap out of any of the Pokemon in the 128 teams challenge, but we'll see. But our Hatterene is going to be the Dazzling Gleam for our stab, and then we also of course have the Trick Room, which is pretty standard on your Hatterenes. But what isn't pretty standard on your Hatterenes is the Magic Powder, which is a signature move that Hatterene has, and if you knew what this move was before this video, you deserve a round of applause, because this is probably the most underused signature move in all of Pokemon. But what you can do with Magic Powder is that it works like Soak, where you can change the opponent's type, and Magic Powder specifically will change the target's type into Psychic. But however, unlike Soak, Magic Powder is a powder move, which I haven't actually tested it, but since it is a powder move, it shouldn't be able to affect grass types. And grass types are one of the Pokemon that you kind of would want to affect, because then that means that you could put them to sleep with other powder moves. Like Amoonguss, for example, you could change it into Psychic, and then you could hit super effectively with the Shadow Ball, which is why we have the Shadow Ball and the Terra Ghost. And then if the Amoonguss tries to spore you, you'll Magic Bounce back the spore, and Amoonguss will actually be put to sleep by it. But because Magic Powder is a powder move, we can't do that to Amoonguss, which is really deflating. And Hatterene also I gave the Citrus Berry just because I wanted to have a little bit of extra health for a little bit of extra bulk on the team. Next up, since we're using a Sunmon and we have Trick Room for being slow, we're slotting in Torkoal, of course, and this Torkoal set is pretty understandable. I mean, it's just Heat Wave, the Body Press, and the Earth Power just for good moves for damaging the opponent, and of course the Drought will set up the Sun, and the Safety Goggles will allow us to ignore the Powder moves. Next up, we've got another Trick Room Mon in the Porygon 2, but this Porygon 2 is based around an idea that I had where I wanted to use another signature move, I guess, on Porygon 2, which is Conversion, and Porygon 2 also has another one called Conversion 2, which, if we scroll down to useless moves, Conversion 2 will make it so that you change your type to resist the target's last move, which is kind of a neat idea, because if a Pokemon is using like a fire, a water, or a grass type move, then you can swap to a type that resists it so that you can make yourself tankier. But because it's so random, especially against types that are resisted by a lot of types, like grass, you could turn into poison, steel, fire, just all those different types, very variable. And then you're also changing your base type so you don't get your stabs anymore. Conversion 2 is pretty gimmicky, but Conversion in and of itself is a little bit better because you can change your type to match your first move. So that means that you can use it defensively, and as long as you have an attacking move, then you could use it offensively, but we don't have an attacking move. We have Magnet Rise. And what Magnet Rise does is that it is an electric type move that gives us a ground immunity for 5 turns. So if we use Conversion to become an electric type, then use Magnet Rise, we will be a Pokemon that has no weaknesses. And this definitely would have been a more neat idea last generation, but now we're in a generation where our gimmick is that we can change our type anytime that we want, so it's not as cool. But also to combo with this on the Porygon 2, we have an actual Terra Electric, so we can change our base type to Electric and then get Terra Electric, so that we even have a stronger Terra Blast. As when we're normal, we can go for the normal Terra Blast, and then when we're Terra Electric, we can go for the Terra Electric Terra Blast. And if we've already conversioned, then we're going to be getting a pretty strong Electric type attack. And then we've also got the download on Porygon 2, just for the chance that we can get a special attack boost to boost our special attack, or an attack boost is not the worst thing in the world. If we're up against an opponent that's going to lower our special attack, then Terra Blast will become a physical attack whenever we terrestrialize. And of course we have the EVLA because we are not a fully evolved Pokemon, so we get to benefit from the defense boost. Crocodile is mostly a Pokemon that I slotted on because I wanted a Dark type to combo with Hatterene a little bit better, and Crocodile sits in a decent speed tier for Trick Room where it doesn't necessarily need it, especially since we are running the Loaded Dice Scale Shot set, as with the speed that we have, we can get off the Scale Shot and then outspeed a lot of the Pokemon in the format, and we will always be getting 4 to 5 hits because of our Loaded Dice, and combined with our Terra Dragon, which does help us out defensively somewhat. The only thing that kind of shoots through the gap there is the fairy typing still being super effective against us, but Dragon allows us to resist water and grass and not be weak to fighting. But then we also have Crocodile's 2 stabs in the knockoff in order to try and get rid of items, and the high horsepower just for a really strong ground type move. And we have the Moxie, which means that whenever we pick up a kill with Crocodile, Crocodile will be getting an attack boost. And since we're going to be trying to make Pokemon Psychic type with Hatterene, we can get that knockoff damage into that Pokemon in order to get some super effective stab damage, pick up a kill, and then try and get out the Scale Shot in order to make ourselves faster, and then Crocodile can maybe run away with game. We'll see. And lastly, we're putting in a Toxicroak here, and Toxicroak is here for more type diversity in the fighting and the poison, but also because I really wanted a Fake Out Mon, and Toxicroak can do something really funny with the Fake Out in the fact that our ability is Poison Touch, which means that all of our contact moves have a 30% chance of poison, and when you get the Fake Out Poison Touch, it's pretty funny. But also to counter other forms of priority, which we don't have great priority negation on this team otherwise, except for our Ghost Terras, we can be clicking the upper hand into the opponent in order to flinch them 100% of the time, as long as they're going for priority moves. And since upper hand is a contact move, we can also get a Poison Touch poison with it, and that would also be really funny. And then just to complement our main stabs, we have the Drain Punch in order to try and keep Toxicroak on the field, and we have the Poison Jab for another 30% chance to poison the target and maybe try to outstall them a little bit. And since all of our moves are attacking moves, we can afford to run the Assault Vest on Toxicroak. But yeah, that's the basic gist of the team. Let's get into some battles.
Alright, so first up we have an opposing Sun team with a Pokemon that is faster than us with Leavanny in the Hisuian Lilligant, as I mentioned before. And we are going to lead Leavanny and Crocodile here into their Lilligant, and Lilycole, Torkoal lead. They immediately terrify our Torkoal as we protect with Crocodile, and they after you Torkoal into the Eruption, which brings Leavanny down to the Sash. Leavanny gets off the Struggle Bug, which is able to chip both Pokemon and lower both of their special attacks. Crocodile is going to reveal the Terra Dragon here, as Leavanny after use again, knocking, Lilligant. Nah, okay, I'm mixing up my Gen 5 grass types here. But the Eruption is going to take out Leavanny, who is on 1 health, but it's not going to do too much damage to Crocodile now that we are a dragon, and Crocodile is able to get off the Scale Shot, which with 4 hits, it's going to be able to KO Leavanny. So we get off our Moxie here, and we get our Speed Boost from the Scale Shot, which is pretty nice, and Indeedee is going to be revealed in the back here as we bring Porygon 2 onto the field, and Porygon 2 gets a special attack boost, but they swap into Hatterene here as we just knock off into Indeedee, and we get the Terra Blast into Hatterene. But Torkoal returns to the field, and we just high horsepower into that as Crocodile gets another Moxie, and we get to Terra Blast into Hatterene. So Leavanny specifically in that game give us the little bit of the edge that we needed in order to beat the opposing Sun, and the fact that we could take the hit and then get off the Struggle Bug in order to lower the opponent's stats, which made it a lot easier to deal with the Lilycole mode. Here we have a Snow team with a lot of fast offensive pressure, especially in like the Blaziken and the Talonflame that can get set up and then start hitting things. Well, we're going to lead Toxicroak and Hatterene here as the opponent leads Garchomp and Talonflame. And Talonflame goes for the Quick Guard. So I tried to upper hand because I thought the Talonflame would go for a priority with its Scale Wings, but it actually went for the fastest priority in Quick Guard, so we were not able to upper hand, probably because Talonflame thought that we were just going to fake out, which Quick Guard also covers for that. But because Talonflame quick guarded, there was only one Pokemon moving on this turn. So Garchomp is going to get off the Earthquake, and Talonflame is going to be immune to it. Hatterene will take damage, but go down to Citrus Berry, and we will lose Toxicroak. But now we get to bring in Crocodile as the Acrobatics into Hatterene, because Talonflame was still at full health, so it still had priority on its move. And Hatterene goes for the Dazzling Gleam here, but Garchomp terrestrialized to Fire in order to resist a Fairy-type attack. But we get the high horsepower into Garchomp, which does get a critical hit, which might have mattered. But we do get our Moxie for Crocodile, and here's where Samurott goes for Sucker Punch, but we go for Magic Powder instead, predicting the bit of priority, and Talonflame no longer has priority because it took a bit of damage from the Dazzling Gleam, which is nice. But here we terrestrialize Crocodile to a Dragon in order to resist the water type move from Samurott, because we do take the Aqua Cutter here, and then we knock off the Samurott in order to get rid of it, as it was the Psychic type because of the Magic Powder. Acrobatics is finally going to take down Hatterene, and this is where the Trick Room kind of works against us, because Torkoal is faster than Abomasnow right now, which means that Abomasnow gets to keep up the snow, and we don't have the sun on Torkoal. Talonflame protects, and because we don't have a lot of special attack investment on Torkoal, the Abomasnow actually lives the Heat Wave and is able to take down Crocodile. And the Helping Hand into Talonflame, and Talonflame gets Acrobatics into Torkoal, and Torkoal misses the Heat Wave on the Abomasnow, which means that they're going to be able to KO us this next turn, where if we hadn't missed the Heat Wave and we had gotten rid of Abomasnow there, then we would have not only taken less damage from the Talonflame, but we would also get a single target not resisted move into the Talonflame in order to get good Heat Wave damage into it and probably have won the game there. But that is not what's going to play out. Instead, we're just going to get Acrobatics and Blizzard. So that was a decent use of the Magic Powder there, where we started to snowball, but unfortunately, because Torkoal dropped the ball a little bit there, we couldn't escape. And lastly, we have a battle against a Regulation A team, from what it looks like, where they have a lot of unique picks, like the Garganacl and the Saraledge that you don't get to see too often, but also the dual Dragon offense with Garchomp and Hydreigon. So they start the battle with Ceruledge and Hydreigon, and we get in Hatterene and Crocodile. They immediately swap into Sylveon, probably not wanting to take a Dark type or Ground type move in that slot, and they immediately Terra Fire their Hydreigon in order to deal a big Fire Blast damage into Hatterene. We do knock off into Sylveon, which gets rid of its leftovers, and we Dazzling Gleam for a bit of damage on both Mons. Quick Attack's going to do some damage to Crocodile as Fire Blast takes out Hatterene, and High Horsepower does not take out Sylveon, which is a tad bit unfortunate. Sylveon's going to be able to stick around. We fake out Hydreigon, and we get a critical hit fake out, so it does quite a bit, but we cannot currently High Horsepower the Hydreigon because it is Levitate, so it's a little bit annoying on the field. We do upper hand the Sylveon in order to catch another quick attack, probably because Sylveon thought that it would get KO'd this turn, so it wanted some free quick attack damage into the Crocodile. But upper hand at least allows us to KO Sylveon, as Fire Blast misses Crocodile, and we get the knockoff into Hydreigon, which gets rid of the Assault Vest. Ceruledge now returns to the field as Fire Blast misses Crocodile again, and we try knocking off the Ceruledge, but Toxicroak is able to take the Hydreigon, and I admittedly probably should have just protected Crocodile on that previous turn in order to take out the Hydreigon. But now we're in the endgame here, where it's Ceruledge and Garganacl versus our 3 Mons, and Ceruledge Bitter Blade does a lot to Crocodile, and Ceruledge gets brought down to its Focus Sash as we Drain Punch some damage from the Garganacl. Self Cure means that Crocodile is going to go down at the end of the turn, as Porygon 2 comes onto the field. Shadow Sneak, Toxicroak does some damage, but we Poison Jab in order to finish it off, and Garganacl looks like it's trying to go for an Iron Defense endgame, but we do the funny thing with the Z conversion, where we become an electric type and then we terrestrialize into an electric type just so that we have the greatest chance of getting rid of this Garganacl in one hit. Even if we didn't have Toxicroak here, Porygon 2 would be pretty able to pull out this endgame against even a tanky Pokemon like Garganacl. So yeah, that was the Leavanny Sun Team, as the in-progress name would lead you to believe, and I'm ready to just get this team behind me. I didn't even think those 3 games that I had played with this team were that great at showing off what the idea of the team was. But just in case you need a reminder, Leavanny is here in order to try and stat drop the opponent in order to make our mons like Hatterene, Porygon 2, and Crocodile bulkier so that they can pull off endgames like Hatterene clicking Magic Powder into a Pokemon in order to make them lose their stabs, and be weak to Leavanny with its Bug typing to hit Psychic types, Hatterene's Shadow Ball and Terra Ghost in order to hit Psychic types, and Crocodile's Dark typing in order to hit Psychic types. You know, come to think of it, maybe the actual basis of this team should have just been Hatterene Magic Powder and then making all of the opponents into Psychic types and building the team around that. That would have been a much better idea. But thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked it, maybe consider leaving a like on the video, and even consider subscribing, because both of those things help me out an absolute ton, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much.